Hello, and welcome back to the Halloween edition of the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansevieri
and Amy Cornell.
And we are so excited to bring you this special Halloween episode with all the creepy Halloween music. This is actually from an old album that I had when I was little. I mean, I found it obviously online, but the chilling, thrilling sounds of the haunted house. I think it was like an old Disney album. But welcome back. We are so excited to have you all here. And let me just turn this off so we can stop all the things. There we go. All right. So Amy actually came up with this episode. I thought this was a really, really cool idea. It's our version of a spooky edition. And it's really about diving into the monsters that are lurking in your book marketing and how to slay them before they scare away your readers. I thought those notes were so hilarious, Amy.
I know, the notes were so much fun, and this I loved. It's very campy, it's very on the nose, but I love a theme. So doing this episode outline, I was like, now I want themes for everything, which we won't do to y'all, so don't worry. But we'll probably do more for more holidays because it was just too much fun, and it keeps a little levity, for some things that can get a little heavy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you, since you designed this episode, why don't you come up with the first one?
Okay. So this is awesome. Frankenstein's platform. So we all know, I hope everybody listening knows the story behind Frankenstein's monster, but essentially this is quite literally when authors stitch together random tactics. We might try a little blogging, you might try a little Instagramming, or maybe you sign up for TikTok, but you're like, it freaks me out. I don't really want to use it. Some Amazon ads, but you just kind of put it together just to say that you're doing it, which we fully appreciate. It feels good to check things off the list. But if there's not an overarching strategy, we've talked about this before, things just tend not to serve you very well, so this is kind of it feels good to be busy, but if you're not busying yourself strategically, then honestly, not only is it not going to serve you well, but then you have to imagine on the other side of that, you have readers that are kind of looking at a brand that really starts to come across as sort of pieced together and messy, as if there's not a continuing thread of intention. And, I love this. It's scary because it wastes time and money.
Right.
It's that those are two very scary things. Like, we all hate wasting time and money. And that's quite literally what happens when you start to get a little frantic and you're like, I haven't done anything. Let me do all the things. But again, without intention, without any sort of strategy, without a plan to maintain it and to keep that effort going long term. And so this is why Frankenstein's platform, stay away from it. Very scary. Again, wasted time and money. And I love that we have cures for everything too. So this is, a full circle episode. Audit your platform. This is definitely where quality over quantity makes more sense, because everything you put out there, Penny, you say it all the time, everything you put out there is your resume.
Yeah.
Everything you put out there, readers are judging you, media is judging you, thought leaders, influencers, whatever you do, you've put out there for them to judge. That is their first impression. That is what makes or breaks them going and clicking buy on your book page. So not to freak you out, but it really does all matter. So you're really better off doing things a little bit slower, but more strategically. Know who your audience is. Do things intentionally with them in mind and the reader experience in mind, and make sure, we've done tons of shows on using a planner, tracking your efforts, tracking your data, whatever works for you, but keep track of what you're doing. And that's one of the best ways to avoid Frankensteining your platform, because you can see the history of what you've done, what you've accomplished, and it's so much easier to outline what you need to do next.
Yeah. I totally agree with this. I love this next one, the werewolf branding, which this will speak to those of you listening who have shape-shifting werewolf tropes in your books. This is not the same thing. I love this. I'm getting such a kick out of this whole theme. And you're right. We could do themes for every episode, but we won't, because that would start to get super weird. So the problem is when an author's branding looks fine, in theory, by day, kind of like the werewolf, looks normal during the day, but shape shifts into something really awful because as your book, after your book is born and as the launch transforms and you transform as an author, all of a sudden your website, your covers, your social content, and your messaging don't match. And we've talked about this before. In fact, you can go back to some of our branding shows and listen to those if you really want to dive deep into this. It confuses readers. It lowers your credibility, which I think is a really big factor here too. I mean, obviously you don't want to confuse your readers, but lowering your credibility in an age where there's a book published every 8 seconds is hugely problematic. And it also makes outreach to the media and influencers much less effective. So, the branding, and I know this is, it's funny because I'm working on, so I finished, very excited. I finished my book on doing local marketing, and now I'm redoing 5-minute book marketing for authors. And I'm completely redoing this book. And there's a section in it that literally takes like how you can rework your brand in 5-minute increments. And I was really happy that, I decided to redo this book and include that because I know that it's an eye-rolling topic. Like I get it. When I teach classes and I see branding, what does that mean? Your brand is sending a message whether you want it to or not. So regardless of whether you like the term branding or even want to spend time on the term branding, it's still out there and it's communicating with readers. And do you really like what it's saying? Right? So, and the challenge too is that when authors have mismatched covers and confusing messages and I'm not talking about an author who writes in a bunch of different genres. Like that's a whole different topic. What I'm talking about is an author who has a consistent, like you write all nonfiction or you write all mystery or you write all, poetry, whatever it is. It has to look consistent across the board. Doesn't mean that all your covers have to match, but they have to have kind of the same vibe. I love testing these before the launch, right? So this is now we're on to the cures for your werewolf branding. If that didn't seem obvious, test them before the launch. And this is why we did a show actually on this: brand marketing versus book marketing. Brand marketing is when you have no book to market, but you're really just marketing your brand. That's a really good opportunity to test all of these components out. And things are going to shapeshift as you start to grow as an author. That's fair, right? Our website, for example, looks nothing like the first website that I designed myself, by the way, which was hideous. Please don't look it up on the Wayback Machine. Thanks. But you want to make sure that all of your platforms are howling the same message. I love how we brought that around. Thank you. This is awesome. This is so much fun. Oh my gosh. All right. Next one.
Yeah, you make such a good point, Penny. I love that because the branding part of it's so easy. And I especially love that you mentioned because all authors, if you stick with this, you will evolve. And that's a good thing. But you have to make sure that you're bringing everything that you have behind you with you as you evolve,
Yeah.
Evolve the website, evolve your social messaging, evolve your banners, your email, like all those little things, they all matter and people notice, Yeah. So, okay. So the next one, the Vampire Vanity Press. And this is fabulous because I have had some situations lately that I've been helping some clients deal with anyway. Predatory companies draining authors' wallets by making big promises or overinflating the kind of exposure they can give them or not revealing how the author's long-term branding and control over their books. You know what I mean? Like that's what we see a lot of. There's a lot of companies out there. They're not necessarily trying to do the wrong things, but they also are not about educating authors. So it's kind of like, well, if you went with them, that's what you're locked into. And it's not their fault that you don't understand how this works, which is really scary. I find that scary.
I find that scary too. Yeah.
And it happens a lot. We work with a lot of clients that long after the fact, and sometimes not so long, unfortunately, that run into challenges because of who they chose to use as their publisher or publishing service. They find out later, I can't do this. I don't have access to that. I don't know how many books I'm selling. I'm not allowed to change my description. Like all of these roadblocks that they end up running into just because they didn't know the right questions to ask. And we've done shows on how to find the right service providers within publishing for different reasons. So definitely look that up if you're new or if you're thinking of going in a different direction. But the problem with this, similar, I don't know, I'm getting all the money ones, but again, this is also very costly. It's very costly. Honestly, a lot of times what it ends up doing too, it leaves authors with unrealistic expectations as well.
Yeah.
Because, people are out there to make money. These companies want to sell packages. They want you in, they want you out. They don't want you asking a bunch of questions. Bye-bye. Thanks so much. Have a great life. And unfortunately, that is not how publishing works. If you plan to be in this business for a while, you know what I mean? You need to educate yourself. You need to ask the right questions. They are not going to hold your hand through everything. And that is something to really keep in mind. And a lot of times, I mean, Penny, you can speak to this more than I can, but it gets very complicated. Some of these contracts, what you have access to, what you don't, how long you are potentially stuck in that contract, how you can potentially break it. I mean, those are the kind of things that nobody listening wants to be dealing with, right?
Well, and the thing I talked to an author the other day, and I just and you and I know of all of the things that you and I go back and forth on in a text string during any given work day, the publisher issues that authors face is probably one of the biggest conversations that we always have, right? So I talked to an author the other day, really nice guy. And he has been asking his publisher for an ebook version of his book for a year.
That is just...
And he's like, the publisher won't even write me back. So I said...
Criminal.
It's criminal. So I said, and listen, if you're listening and you're like, oh, my ears are peaked because something similar has happened to me. I can't reach my publisher. Publisher's not writing him back. Look up the other authors that are published on the website. There's a chance that, maybe, and I don't want to get too far off of the notes that we have for this particular podcast, but the publisher may be understaffed or in trouble, or maybe they're getting ready to close their doors. I mean, who knows what? I would reach out to the other authors on their website. I would just go find their websites or their social media feeds, whatever, and just say, listen, I'm a fellow author with XYZ publisher. I'm having a hard time reaching somebody. What's going on? Mm-hmm. That would be my suggestion. And then, the other thing that I told him is like, you know what? Send him an email and give him a deadline. Like, you have until close of business Friday, or I'm going to take my file and I'm going to turn it into an ebook. And, and if that doesn't get them to respond, well, then, too bad. So sorry.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. So, I mean, this is one of those things, again, it's hard to know what questions to ask when you've never done this before. And we get that. And again, we've done shows on this, so definitely listen to those. But, I love that tip, Penny. Research every service provider. Reach out to some of their authors.
Yeah.
See how it's been. How has their experience been? Any suggestions, any recommendations? Another thing that we've seen a lot lately, and it may not sound like a big deal when you're first getting started, but I would have very real conversations with whoever you choose about how they work with Amazon.
My gosh, yes.
How they work with Amazon. What is their stance in terms of making updates to your book, to your retail page, to your keywords? Ask them, get that in writing, how they handle situations like that. Because as an author, you should be able to say, I want to make my book better. And this is what I need to do to make my book better. And if they are the ones that uploaded your book, they are the ones that have access to do that. And you want it in writing that they will make those changes for you and make those updates. Because if you are going to be successful in this industry, again, it's coming up, evolve. You have to be ready to evolve. And you can't evolve if your book is essentially locked. They threw away the key. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Like that should not be anything you should accept. So those kind of questions are important to ask. before you get started as well. How do you work with Amazon? What is the process? What are my options for making updates to my book in the future? How do you handle that? Who do I contact? How soon can I expect you to resolve those for me? Like, get specific about that. And if they push back and act like you're asking inappropriate questions, red flag.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And if they work with third-party companies to put a book up on the Amazon, some publishers do, find out the name of the third-party company. Because some third-party companies that shall remain nameless because we don't want to get sued, but you're welcome to email us and we'll tell you all the things. Some third-party companies are having challenges. They don't always play well with Amazon. So good to find out, ask those questions. I love that. I think that's really smart. I love the next one, the money mailing list. This is so awesome. I mean, it's not awesome. We're going to fix this problem. But so authors who build a mailing list but never use it, leaving it wrapped up and lifeless. I love that note. That is great.
I know, right?
That's so fabulous. But it's so true. Like, okay, so it's kind of like what you said in the first, with the first Monster Mash, scary, right? Where, we dabble in this, we dabble in that. Oh, we know we need to do we need to do on TikTok. And I'm kind of guilty of the TikTok thing because I hate videos so much. And then there were people pretending to be me and I was just like, no, I'm just super bummed. But sometimes we do dabble as authors, right? Like we dip here, and the mailing list is kind of one of them, right? So you start a mailing list, and then what happens is, and by the way, we did a show on this, so go back. If mailing lists are like you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I need to focus on my newsletter, we did a show on this for sure. Whenever I cite these shows, I wish that I had exact dates. We have a staff.
Like a treasure hunt every time.
It's a treasure hunt every time. I know, y'all, seriously. And one of our listeners, I gotta give Amy a shout out. One of our listeners wrote us, it was a busy Monday, and she was like, hey, I'm looking for this episode on blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm sure you can just search it. I'm so helpful. I'm usually more helpful. It was a busy Monday. I'm so sorry. But then Amy had responded to her and told her the specific episode and the date. So apparently if you want good answers, go to Amy because she's a lot more helpful than me. But we have a team member who really loves Excel. I don't understand. Like Excel just kind of scares me. Like I use it only because Microsoft hates us, but so I'm going to see if she can create an Excel directory so that when we start citing episodes, we're like, okay, episode number 48 or whatever, year 2 or something, go back, because otherwise we're getting people emailing us and I am not being helpful. So, but we did an episode on newsletter. Sorry, that was a really long-winded way of saying we did an episode on newsletter lists, and it was, so if that's like your thing, go back and find it or email Amy because she'll know off the top of her head which when we did the episode. When you have a mailing list, and the problem with mailing lists too is that if you leave it for too long, it becomes harder and harder to create an engaged or warm up your list, right?
Yep.
So a cold, unengaged list with low open rates is really wasted potential. And when you have, so the thing about it is though too, is, we all get hit with so much stuff, right? Sign up for this, sign up for that. And then when a reader does sign up, that's a huge compliment to you as an author. Yes. So, cherish that, that list and really take care of that list. So if you're listening to this, you're like, oh, I haven't sent anything. And don't tell me that you're not sending something in between releases, because if your release is 6 months out, that means that you're not communicating with your readers for 6 months. And that's a big no-no, right? Or if your release is a year out, even worse, right? So
right. I love that, Penny. I think that's such a good point when you said cherish those people, because we talked about it on the newsletter show, but I think it's worth saying again, because this is, I think, very real for a lot of people, is that you have a small list, which means you don't feel super motivated to do anything with it. It's kind of like that always when it gets to this number, I'll do something. You know what I mean? It's always like that next, when it gets good enough, I'll put more time and energy into it. But those original, shift your thinking, those few people that are on it now are your biggest supporters.
Oh, for sure.
and not communicating with them is offensive.
Yeah.
You know, these are the kind of people that are most likely to recommend your book to a friend, you know, are most likely to mention you, or most likely to like something you do on social. Like the people that sign up early for your lists are your best people. Like those are your people. So really don't, like you said, wasted potential. Do not let them sit there and feel underappreciated.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, and the other piece of it though, too, is that if you are, you know, don't wait until you have a particular number
Mm-hmm.
to start figuring out how to do, how to, you know, what to say in your newsletter. I mean, the earlier that you start, the earlier that you're going to get kind of a feel for what people respond to. You know,
Right.
even if you just have 5 people, like I know that seems like oh my gosh, I'm putting all of this effort in for 5 people. As Amy said, those are cherished. It's offensive that they're not getting anything. They signed up for something. So, you know,
Yeah, they'll be the most understanding probably too, Penny, right? Like to
oh,
your
for sure.
point, like if you're going to screw up, if you're not going to put out a great newsletter from the start, I mean obviously aim for your best, but you'll figure it out as you go. But those are the people that are going to be the most understanding. You know,
Yeah.
use them as your guinea pigs because they're just there to support you. So it's better to do it then than when your list grows and people are like, wow, they really don't have their shit together, do they? Like,
Right, exactly. You know, so you want to focus on the connection, not just the sales, right? Because a lot of times we actually have a show coming up on this. It was inspired by a conversation that I had with an author. We're probably not going to run the show until December, so I didn't mean to tease it so early, but it is it is a show around changing your focus, right? So changing your focus, focusing on connection, not just sales. And those 5 people that you have on your newsletter list, they already bought your book, and they could be a sales force that could help to build,
mm-hmm.
bring more people to your brand, bring more people to your books, and bring more people to your newsletter. So unwrap your list periodically, just to go back to the mummy reference, because that's the thing that's going to always try to keep your list warm. Then
Mm-hmm.
you have to send an email newsletter out once a week at all. Once a month is more than enough. All right.
Yep.
So now so I know the mini monsters were kind of optional, but super fun. I think we should definitely do these.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to start off because I love this one. It's all about me. I want to lead off with the invisible man, because we see this all the time, right? An author who shows up online, who never shows up online, and then wonders why no one knows their book exists. So
Preach. I want to almost clap for that one.
I know, right? Like it's because it is a fatal mistake, and it's something that we see all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's something that we see all the time. And nobody, your book is not the field of dreams. Just because you published a book doesn't mean that people are going to beat a path to your door. You have to make that path. You have to do all the things. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be on every single social media site. That's not at all what we're saying. And we've said this ad nauseum. Like if you've listened to us for the last 5 years on these shows, be smart about your interaction, be smart about where you're spending your time, but you definitely have to show up.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I love this one, the Headless Horseman.
I love that one too. I know that one too. Yeah.
Yes. And so this would be an author who is charging ahead with ads and spending money on things because it sounds good, but they don't have any clear targeting. So this goes back to busy feels productive, but most often it is not productive at all. And you're most likely wasting money,
For sure. Yeah.
So the Headless Horseman, if you are just doing the things to check it off your list, or because that's what authors are supposed to do, you are likely wasting a lot of money, and you're not really thinking about how your particular reader market discovers new books. And that's the most important thing. One, understand who your reader market is. We've done shows on that. You have to understand what they're looking for. You have to understand the books that they're buying. So doing that market research, like, okay, what books and titles are doing really well that are in my category? Like, who is pulling this off? What are readers gravitating towards? You can learn a lot from that. But so understanding who your reader market is number one, but then getting extra thoughtful about how they end up finding books they end up buying and reading and reviewing. So yes, ads are important, using the right targeting, using the right keywords. There are a lot of other places and other ways that people find books, and it's not always the same across the board for every genre or topic by any means.
Yeah.
So really understanding how book discovery works for who your readers are is also important, because as Penny just said, you don't have to do all the things, but you have to do the things that make sense for who your audience is. And also where you're at kind of in your author journey, where your brand is. Are you brand new or have you been around for 10 years? That kind of affects things too, but really understand where you should be and what you should be doing and who you're targeting. And you'll save a lot of time and money.
Yeah, absolutely. The spider web of social media. I love this one. The author who gets tangled trying to be everywhere at once, but never builds real strength in any one platform. So again, and I alluded to this in The Invisible Man, we've done a lot of shows on this. Don't be everywhere that matters. Figuring out where your reader shows up. Because the other piece of it though too is that if you're trying to be on all of these social media sites, it's exhausting, right? And yeah, you could, sure, you could post the same content across all of your platforms. Absolutely. But when are you going to have the time to engage with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or to try and determine, and the other piece of it though too is that if you are truly going to be on all the platforms, different content, not every piece of content is going to resonate the same way as like on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. Like the stuff that I post on Facebook, I would never post on LinkedIn.
Right.
It's just a different tone. So reassess your social media for sure. It's scary and it'll waste a lot of time. And as I mentioned, we did a show on this. I don't remember the episode number. Write to Amy. She will know off the top of her head. I love this last one. I really wanted the last one. I'm going to have lots of comments about the last one. Take the last one, Amy. I love it.
Okay, I love it too. The troll under the bridge.
I love it.
I know. And this is quite literally, we get it. Like we've all experienced it, probably. A negative review or some sort of online critic that spooks authors into hiding, instead of staying visible for who their readers really are. This is so important because one, in case nobody, in case this hadn't clicked yet, when you put a book out to the world, you are quite literally asking people to read it and give their opinion on it. Reviews matter. We all want reviews. There's nobody listening right now that doesn't want more book reviews, but believe it or not, people will have different opinions on your book. That's just how it goes. So I realize that's a really tough pill to swallow sometimes, but that is part of being in publishing and being an author. But a lot of times, unless it's something very specific about the production of the book, like lack of editing or something like that you were in control of, a lot of times you have to just remember that that person may not be your target reader. You can't prevent them from buying your book. You can't prevent them from leaving a review. That's how this goes. But you have to really keep in mind and compartmentalize, like, does this person sound like one of my readers? And do I need to take their feedback constructively? Or is this just really not somebody that I was trying to please in the first place? And I just have to let it go.
Right. Exactly. And then, the other, like, I get it. So I remember like 25 years ago when I published my first book, I got a negative review from somebody who misunderstood what the book was about. And I rocked in a corner, and it was, and it wasn't even just a negative review on Amazon. It was a negative review on their blog, like why they hated the book and blah, blah, blah. And then, and I can completely understand how that can completely deflate an author. For sure. Because it's, your writing is very, even if you've written nonfiction, your writing is very personal, right? We pour our hearts and souls into our writing. And if somebody doesn't like it, then, at least for me, it makes me super sad. And sometimes I want to hide under a bridge like a troll. I got to tell you, I really love these. I thought that this was such a great idea. And I want to remind you, first off, happy Halloween to everybody. Love Halloween. I want to remind you, so we've had some signups for our podcast. So the text alerts rather the text alerts for the podcast. So text the word podcast. Sorry, that didn't come out really well. But text the word podcast to 888-402-8940. I'll repeat that number again, which is 888-402-8940. And you will get show updates, but you can also let us know what you want to hear, what you want to see. Send us a text message and let us know what you want to see more of, show ideas, things like that. It's a great way to communicate with us directly. And also, we are still waiting on our 100th review. People, what is going on out there? We actually got a really sweet note from somebody this morning who was like, I'm listening on Spotify and it's really hard to review on Spotify. I know some of these platforms just don't make it very easy. But Amy has some easy instructions in the show notes. So leave us a review. We really want to get to 100. Y'all are really making us wait, right? We need to get to 100 before the end of the year. Don't make us wait until December 31st, because then we'll be super sad. But we'll still be excited for the 100th review. All right. Thank you so much for joining us for this special Halloween episode. We're kicking our music to the curb and we're using our spooky, spooky, spooky Halloween music. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Penny Sansferry and Amy Cornell, and we will see you next Friday. Have a happy Halloween. Bye-bye.